My name is Philip Rosenfield. I am a business person in West Concord. My store is the ice cream shop known as Reasons to Be Cheerful Ice Cream. And today we are going to hear Chapter 13 from the Penderwicks, The Piano Lesson. So, with that said, here goes. Chapter 13, The Piano Lesson. "This is lousy," said Skye, looking out the window at the pouring rain. The four sisters were in the cottage kitchen. Jane and Batty were finishing up their breakfast, and Rosalind was making brownies again. "The garden sure need it, though," said Rosalind. "Why couldn't it have rained yesterday instead, when the garden club was here? Then we wouldn't have been playing soccer, and we wouldn't have gone through the hedge," said Skye. "You wouldn't have gone through the hedge if you'd listened to me," said Rosalind. "Oh, Rosalind, don't. We're worried enough without you rubbing it in," said Jane. "I'm not worried," said Skye. She was fibbing. The Penderwicks were going home to Cameron in 3 days. How could that possibly be enough time to help Geoffrey out of the trouble they've gotten him into? If they even could help. Oh, where was he? "Achoo!" sneezed Jane. "Ugh, you spit on my cereal," said Batty. Rosalind swept the tainted cereal bowl away from Batty with one hand and felt Jane's forehead with the other. "You feel like you have a fever, Jane." "I'm fine, really." "Geoffrey's here." Skye threw open the door. "Thank goodness you made it." "I said I would," as he shrugged off his rain-drenched jacket. "We were afraid you'd still be locked up," said Jane. "Mother let me come out of my room this morning, and then she and Dexter left for Vermont to shop for antiques, so I'm free." "Achoo!" said Jane. "Ugh," said Batty. "Jane, go up to your room and rest," said Rosalind. "I don't want to rest," said Jane. "You don't have a choice," said Rosalind. "Go upstairs to your bedroom." "Sabrina Starr always obeys orders. But I won't rest. I'll work on my book. It's almost finished. Isn't that very exciting?" "Very exciting," said Geoffrey. "Goodbye, Geoffrey. Don't let Skye get you into any more trouble," said Jane. "Me?" said Skye. "At least I won't turn into Mick Hart." Sabrina Starr departed with dignity. Jane sneezed 3 times, each sneeze bigger than the last, then left for her bedroom. "What should we do?" Skye asked Geoffrey. "I wanted to practice with the bows and arrows again, but we can't in the rain." "I have an idea for something we can do at my house," said Geoffrey. "But it's a surprise, and I'm not going to tell you what it is until we get there. Would you like to come too, Rosalind?" "I'll stay here in case Jane needs anything," said Rosalind. "I have a book about the Battle of Gettysburg I want to read anyway." "Cagney lent it to her," said Skye to Geoffrey. She already whipped through his oh-so-fascinating one about the Civil War generals. "Oh, okay," said Geoffrey. Rosalind ignored them. "Can I come with you, Geoffrey?" said Batty. "Sure," said Geoffrey. "No," said Skye. "How much trouble can she be?" "You'll find out." "Can we take carrots to Yaz and Carla first, and then we can stop by the lily pond to visit the frogs?" said Batty. "Oh, Batty." Geoffrey looked helplessly at Skye. "Be tough." "Rabbits, yes. Frogs, no," said Geoffrey. "Cool. I was sure you'd say no to both," said Batty, and dove into the refrigerator for carrots. "This is your big idea, Jeffrey? Teaching me how to play the piano?" said Skye. They were in the music room at Arundel Hall, and she was staring with dismay at the grand piano in the corner. It was the biggest piano she had ever seen. Right now, with the threat looming of having to make music on it, it seemed like the biggest thing she had ever seen, period. Like a black shiny whale ready to eat her up with embarrassment. "You'll like it. Music is a lot like math. You're good at math, right?" said Jeffrey. "I'm excellent at math, and my clarinet was nothing like that at all. It was torture." "Let's go up into the attic again. There's tons of stuff up there to mess around with." "Coward." "I'm not a coward." Skye made a ferocious, uncowardly face at him. "Then just try it. It'll be fun. I promise." "Couldn't we at least use the piano in your room? It isn't so big. There's only a stool up there. We couldn't both sit." Jeffrey sat down on one side of the piano bench and patted the empty space next to him. "Come on." Gingerly, Skye squeezed herself behind the piano and lowered herself onto the bench. She felt trapped. In back of her was a corner with no door, no window. In front of her was the gigantic piano with its 88 teeth and soaring lid. She couldn't even see past it into the rest of the room. "Okay, now listen for a minute," said Jeffrey, shaking the tension out of his hands, then lowering them to the keys. Before Jeffrey could strike a note, Batty's head popped up on his side of the piano bench. Skye jumped. The little squirt must have crawled under the piano to get there. "Hey, Jeffrey," said Batty, "can I play with those pillows on the couch?" "Sure," he said, and Batty's head disappeared. "What pillows?" said Skye. "Don't worry about it. Close your eyes and listen," said Jeffrey, and he played several bars of music. Now that was Bach. Did you hear the mathematical progressions? Of course not. Let's explore the basement today. I love basements. Batty's head appeared next to Jeffrey again. "Can I play with that gold thing by the fireplace?" "You mean the fire screen? Go ahead," said Jeffrey, and Batty's head vanished again. "You're letting her play with gold?" said Skye. "Don't worry, it's only brass. Now concentrate. You must already know from playing the clarinet, trying to play the clarinet, that notes are like fractions. Whole notes, halves, quarters, eighths, sixteenths. That's math. But you can also think of the scale as a base 8 number system. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Then we get to 8 and we have to start all over again with do, right? Listen. Jeffrey played a scale on the piano. Once again, there was Batty beside Jeffrey. "What about those little stone animals on the table in the corner?" she said. "Play with whatever you want. Just be careful," said Jeffrey. "Okay," she said, and she left. "Skye, listen to the music. Hear the patterns. You're not going to give up, are you? I really think you'd be good at this, if you'd just try." He played the piece again. This time he went past the first measures and continued to the end. When he finished, he looked expectantly at Skye. "Huh? I think I'm starting to get it." "Really?" "Yeah, it's all about combining logic and instinct. Let me try." She said that, shaking out her hands, then lowering them gracefully to the keyboard. Crash! Bang! Discord! Boom! "Stop!" You win! Be quiet!" he shouted, covering his ears. But Skye was enjoying herself too much to stop. So Geoffrey started to tickle her and kept on doing it until Skye fell off her side of the piano bench. Only then was blessed silence restored. Geoffrey looked down at Skye on the floor. Now we can discuss the key of E flat. Skye lunged at him and yanked him off the bench, and the tickling began again. There was lots of hysterical laughter, that is, in between the shouted threats. Tickling turned to wrestling, then to pummeling. The piano bench was kicked over, and sheet music flew everywhere. So loud was the joyful mayhem that neither heard the sound of someone opening the door and coming into the room. Had they been more careful, but why would they have known? They couldn't have known that Dexter's car would get a flat tire on the way to Vermont, and that he would get so wet and dirty changing it in the rain that he'd turn around and bring Mrs. Tifton home early. And they certainly couldn't have known that she'd hear their thumping and laughing from the hall and come in to see what was going on. But that's exactly what happened, and this time Sir Barnaby wasn't there to keep Mrs. Tifton from losing her temper out loud. "You again?" She glared venomously down at Skye. "You?" Geoffrey lurched to his feet, knocking the fallen piano bench into the piano leg in the process. "Mother," he gasped, I thought you were in Vermont." "And this is how you take advantage of my absence, rolling around like a hooligan? With this obnoxious, this wretched—" Skye stood up beside Geoffrey unashamed, for they hadn't been doing anything wrong. Today there was no spilled urn, no splattered jasmine, no ruined competition. "I started the rolling around, Mrs. Tifton." "Oh, I wouldn't doubt for a minute that you started it, Jane. You cause havoc wherever you go. First my poor garden, and now this," said Mrs. Tifton, indicating the rest of the music room with a dramatic sweep of her arm. Skye and Geoffrey peered around the grand piano. "Oh no," thought Skye. Maybe there wasn't a spilled urn, but something pretty awful had been added to the music room. A sort of combination Wild West fort and Arabian Nights tent built from couch pillows and a brass fire screen, plus a dozen large leather-covered books and several elegant silk throws. "Batty?" A paled and frightened face peeked out from behind Vanity Fair. "It's all right, Geoffrey. It's all right," said Geoffrey. "You don't have to hide." Batty crawled into view. In each of her hands was a small, intricately carved stone lion. "Papa's African sculptures?" said Mrs. Tifton. "Geoffrey Framley Tifton, have you no respect for anything of mine?" "He was just," said Skye. Mrs. Tifton turned on her, cutting her off. "Leave my house. You and your sister both. The Penderwicks are no longer welcome here." "Mother, they—" said Geoffrey. "I will not hear another word from you until they are gone," said Mrs. Tifton. "Then I'll show them out," he said staunchly. "I'm sure they know the way. You will stay here and help me clear up this disaster." "It's okay," said Skye to Geoffrey. "We do know the way. Come on, Batty. Let's go." Batty carefully placed the little sculptures on the floor, then crept over to Skye, using her under-the-piano detour to avoid Mrs. Tifton. "See you later," said Geoffrey. "Yeah, I'll see you later, Geoffrey." "Thank you for teaching me how to play the piano," said Skye. and with her head held high, she marched past Mrs. Tifton and out the door. Batty made it out of the music room before she started to cry, but when her tears did come, they were what Mr. Penderwicks called Batty's silent storm. That is, fast, furious, and without any noise. Skye pulled her down the hall to where they couldn't be heard by Mrs. Tifton. Don't. Not now. Calming Batty wasn't one of Skye's talents. She wished Rosalind were there, or even Jane. It's all my fault. Batty's wings drooped and her tears flowed like waterfalls. I shouldn't have come, Skye, like you said. There was no comfort in saying I told you so, not with Batty already crying like her heart would break. And besides, Skye knew this was much more her own fault than Batty's. I'm the OAP, she said. I should have been paying more attention. I guess so. Then stop crying and dry your face. I don't have a tissue, sobbed Batty. This new tragedy only made her cry harder. Use your clothes. I won't tell anyone. While Batty scrubbed at her face with her little shirt, Skye looked anxiously back towards the music room. She desperately wanted to eavesdrop, just for a moment, to make sure Geoffrey wasn't getting too horribly punished. I'm done, said Batty. Her shirt was very wet and crumpled looking now, but her tears had slowed to a trickle. Good job. Skye awkwardly patted her head. Now go to the kitchen. Churchy will give you something to eat. I want to stay with you. Please. Any minute, Mrs. Tifton could come bursting out of the music room. It was either listen at the door right now or leave the house altogether. And Skye just couldn't bear to leave without knowing that Geoffrey was all right, especially not after getting into trouble again. Okay, she said, but you must be very quiet while I check on Geoffrey. You mean you're going to snoop? Yes, snoop, and if you don't like it, you can go find Churchy right now. Batty preferred snooping to wandering around Arundel Hall by herself, so the two sisters tiptoed back to the music room and pressed their ears to the door. Mrs. Tifton was talking. I don't understand what's happened, Geoffrey. You never used to defy me this way. Ever since those Penderwicks. It's got nothing to do with them, Mother, said Geoffrey. You used to have such nice friends like Teddy Robinette. Teddy Robinette's never been my friend. He's a bully and a jerk. I don't believe this. No one at school likes him, and he cheats. You just wanted me to be his friend because he's from a rich family. That's enough. Skye and Batty could hear Mrs. Tifton pacing. I just don't know how to handle you anymore. Dexter's been saying you need a firmer hand. Maybe he's right. Dexter? Said Geoffrey scornfully. What does that mean? You don't like him either? If not, you'd better say something right now because... She broke off in the middle of her sentence. Because you're going to marry him? Said Geoffrey. The pacing stopped, and Mrs. Tifton's voice became softer, almost pleading. Would that be so bad? For me to have a husband? And you have a father? He doesn't want to be my father. He wants to get rid of me. He wants to send me away to Pensy a whole year early. We're still discussing. Suddenly her soft and pleading tone was gone. Just a minute, young man. How do you know about that? Well, I heard you talking about it. We? There was a long pause. Answer me, Geoffrey. When and with whom did you spy on me? Does Churchy have something to do with this? Cagney? No, he cried. Of course not. Those Penderwicks, then. I should have known. But we weren't spying, Mother. Really, we weren't. We heard you and Dexter talking by mistake after my birthday party. By mistake, was it? I'll bet the spying was Jane's idea. Sneaky, sarcastic blonde. You mean Skye, and she's not... Don't interrupt, Mrs. Tipton snapped. And it's not only Jane, Skye. It's all of them. They're uncouth, rude, and conceited. This is what happens when parents don't do their jobs. The father's a pushover who knows who knows where the mother ran off to. I suppose she got tired of caring for all those girls. I certainly would. For the two in the hallway, this was a nightmare. Skye didn't mind being called sneaky and sarcastic. That wasn't so awful, considering the source. And if it was true, here she was, spying. But to hear Mrs. Tipton criticize her father, and worse, oh, much worse, spew out nasty ideas about her mother, that was unbearable. Skye felt a red rage building inside of her. Her hands tightened into hard fists. Her ears rang so that she could just barely hear Geoffrey's reply. Mother, Mrs. Penderwicks, and that Rosalind is always chasing after Cagney like a lovesick puppy. If she keeps up that kind of behavior, one of these days some man will allow himself to be caught, and that will be the end of her wide-eyed innocence. Plus, you can't tell me there's nothing wrong with that little one. Those tacky wings and the odd way she stares without speaking. Skye knew she shouldn't go in there. It wasn't gentlemanly, and it would only give Mrs. Tipton more reason to hate her. Yes, she knew all that. And even Batty was tugging at her arm to keep her from doing it. But it didn't matter. The family, her mother's honor was at stake, and she had to defend the people she loved the best. She took a deep breath, girded herself for battle, and threw open the door and charged across the room towards Mrs. Tipton. Where? What? Sputtered Mrs. Tipton. You can't talk about my family like that, shouted Skye. Take it back, now! How dare you? In my home! Mrs. Tipton ran to the door and shouted into the hallway, Churchy! Come to the music room! Right now! Skye followed her. I dare because I'm a Penderwicks, but you wouldn't know anything about that. Geoffrey, you see? She was spying again. I was spying, I admit it, said Skye proudly. I needed to make sure Geoffrey was all right. Make sure? You presumptuous Churchy! And I'm glad I spied because I heard those things you said, and you couldn't. Skye felt the soothing hand on her shoulder. It was Churchy, flushed and panting from running. Come, Skye. Churchy picked up Batty, who was crying all over again. You'd better go back to the cottage now. But Skye was too far gone to listen. She stuck her face up close to Mrs. Tipton's. You couldn't in a million years understand anything about my mother. You're not good enough. She would never have left us on purpose. She died. Do you hear me? My mother is dead. I didn't know. No one told me. Geoffrey was trying to tell you, but you wouldn't pay attention. Just like you never... Skye, that's enough, dear. It was Churchy again. Tend to your sister. Yes, Churchy, please. Mrs. Tipton looked like she was going to faint. Get her away from me." "I'll get myself away," said Skye. Still shaking with anger, she went over to Geoffrey. He was shaking too, not far from anger, but as if he'd barely survived a tornado. Skye lowered her voice so that only he could hear. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had to, though." "I know." She made her hand into a fist and held it out to him. He put his fist on top of hers. "Friends forever?" said Skye. "Friends forever." "Penderwick family honor," they said together. Skye stalked through the rain, feeling it running down her hair and face and into her t-shirt and shorts, soaking them. After tucking Batty into her yellow slicker, Churchy had tried to get Skye into a raincoat too, but she'd been too impatient to get out of the house and as far away from Mrs. Tifton as possible. Now they were almost to the marble Thunderbolt Man. Soon they'd be through the tunnel and back on the sane, peaceful side of the hedge. "I have a question." Batty was peering up from under the brim of her rain hat. "What?" "Am I odd? Is there something wrong with me, like Mrs. Tifton said?" Skye knelt down on the wet grass and looked right into Batty's eyes. "No, you stupid idiot, there's nothing wrong with you. You are perfect. Mrs. Tifton doesn't know what she's talking about." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely positive." "Oh," said Batty. "Do you have any more questions?" "No, not right now." "Then let's get you home to Daddy." And Skye took hold of Batty's hand and held it all the way back to the cottage. And that's the end of chapter 13.